Hello, this is Team 2, and this is our Team Report 4 that we are doing this week. So I'll quickly first go over our Tiger. This is our burn down chart for the sprint 4. It looks a little inconsistent towards the end, but it was especially because we had two members not being able to work a lot due to some health issues. The weather has been really bad right now. That's why we got a little bit of inconsistency towards the end of the sprint. But otherwise, we still did manage to finish all the tasks that were assigned to us. Um, so let me just quickly go over the important tasks that we have managed to achieve in the sprint. So first of all, we worked on performance testing the application. So this application is a Windows app where the sponsor basically has data which is being loaded onto the application, and then it renders some diagrams into the application based on the data. So we basically generated dummy data, like millions of values of dummy data, and basically crash tested the application to see what the breakpoint is. So the sponsor was particularly interested in knowing what the breakpoint of the application is. We managed to find that for the sponsor. uh, After that, we also did a CI/CD pipeline so that every time we have a stable release pushed to the main, it will automatically be released as an executable file on the GitHub using GitHub Actions. It's a Windows application, so it basically releases a Windows executable file. And so the sponsor or anyone with the access to our repo can directly go into the repo and download the released executable file and see what the latest code and how the latest application works without having to go into the code itself. So that's what we did for our sponsor. Uh, the main thing that we worked on was the JSON file. So this is the JSON file that we are talking about in the beginning. The sponsor has all its data stored inside this JSON file, which contains a lot of data, especially some XY coordinates in the data. So it has information about a lot of panels, and each of the panels have some XY coordinates to render it as a whole diagram onto the screen in the application, which I'll show in a bit. So we basically worked on importing the JSON file into our WPF Windows application. Then we extracted the data out of it. We had to parse through the data to just get the important XY coordinates that we actually needed. And then we had to actually go ahead and render those coordinates to create a sensible diagram. And the last thing were a couple of UI changes. These are some recurring changes. The sponsor keeps us giving. The sponsor is trying to test out different variants of the application. Basically, like they like us to move around certain buttons, check some functionalities to see what works the best for them, like what user experience works best for them. So these are some UI changes that we have been doing in the past. We have done the sprint, and we will probably continue doing in the sprints that are upcoming. Now, let me quickly show you our latest app and how it runs. So let it, yeah, over here we have our app. So earlier this button was just a dummy button doing nothing, but now we actually have done the functionality, the backend code behind it, so we can actually import the JSON file. This is a sample JSON file we the sponsor has given us just for testing purposes. So I'll just quickly show you using this file. Um, Yes. So the JSON file basically renders this diagram. It fetches all the coordinates from the JSON file and renders this diagram onto the screen. And we also have some data instances table, which is also fetched from the same JSON file. We have made certain UI changes. The menu over here now can be, the table can be minimized so that the viewer over here can be maximized to the screen. Apart from that, we have basically, yeah, actually rendered the actual diagram that the sponsor wants, and we have made changes to the zoom functionality that the sponsor basically wanted to pan through the window using the zoom. So wherever the mouse pointer is, the different parts of this diagram can be zoomed in and out, so that like that's the thing that the sponsor wants for its own clients. So yeah, these were some of the major things that we have done this week, and this is the latest iteration of our working application. So let me just go back. And yes, that was all for this week. Thank you so much.